the most disastrous area? What compass direction does it face? We don't need to know absolute degrees, but whether it's south or west or southwest, any of those, let's just say, major increments, give us a clue, because with landscaping in mind and arboriculture in mind, the care of good trees and the good care of trees, both ways, is important to us. So with that, let's get back to, let's just say, other factors in terms of the landscape. Dave, you mentioned, let's just say, a setting for the balance of our conversation in terms of creating spaces. And you used a different term, but in any event, all the way from curb appeal and a nice front entrance presentation. And then down along the sides of the house, if you have property wide enough to work with, and then certainly in the backyard. This business of setting up things, places in particular, to live, to see, to actually functionally enjoy. So give us some thoughts on that as to what people should be thinking about, what they'd like to do with their outdoors.
Well, one of the elements that we're seeing relative to people's lifestyles and how they're changing as far as not taking as many long and distant vacations, they're spending what they refer to as stayvations, where they actually stay home, and they're looking at their backyard, and they're like, what can we do to this so we can really enjoy that and have neighbors over and so forth. And it's a transition from the outside to the inside. And one of the key elements that I focus on is looking within the architecture of the house on the inside and take those elements structurally and the design that you have on the inside and carry that to the outside so that there's a nice, easy transition. Obviously, and in some cases, there's a steeper step down outside somebody's back door because of the slope of a house to the lawn. And in that case, you have to transition it, which actually creates an opportunity because you can actually have a terraced outdoor patio and then focus on some of the other extravagant elements if they're interested, that is, as far as an outdoor fire pit or outdoor fireplace. Even we're seeing more and more outdoor kitchens. And incorporate that with even some water features if they're interested.
I have, let's just say, on more than a dozen occasions over the number of years, had people invite me. And now I usually invite myself in so I can look out through their windows as to what their vistas, views, and so on are. But I've had no less than a dozen people tell me, this is my color choice. These are the things that I have indoors. And this I want to meld into the outside. And I know a good landscape designer can carry out their color scheme without paint and wallpaper right on outdoors with the kinds of plants and positions of them, the flowering colors, and so on.
Absolutely. Yep. It's a situation where it's really important to actually transition colors from the inside to the outside. And again, carrying those into the wintertime.
Big point there. Now, a lot of winter is brown and gray and black and textural, and then in some trees, such as the plant of the week this week, the common witch hazel, it can be of structural interest because I have several branches that had to be taken off of mine due to a disease, which is most unfortunate. Up come some new ones, and I did some pruning to where I now have had the chance to create a rather interesting structure in this plant. Some people wouldn't want it, but it works beautifully in my situation where I have made it a multiple stem tree, short in stature, kind of resembling my own personal situation. But let's just say that outside we're thinking of texture and structure. But you mentioned winter color. Explain that and expand on it a little bit, what people should tell you that they do like to look at in the wintertime even.
Well, most people, I don't think, realize the opportunities of color in the wintertime. You have, even with the brown, there can be some very beautiful ornamental grasses. Maidenhair grass is an example. A year or so ago, I was outside on a beautiful Sunday morning in the blue sky, and I like outdoor photography. So one of the photos I took was the fronds of the seed head actually blowing in the wind. It took an absolutely gorgeous photo. Great. So there's different opportunities to look at different colors. We try to stay with a plant palette of material that we know that's readily available for plant replacements, so we can make sure that if some plant does die, we can get it replaced readily. A good example would be using a Winter King hawthorn. It carries the berry into February. Certain selections of crab apples, winter gold, harvest gold, as well as sugar time crab apple. Those are all real nice selections of plants that carry the berry through the wintertime.
Well, after a moment here where we're going to let Mark break back in, I want to talk about that Winter King hawthorn. Now, it doesn't exemplify everything, but I'd like to expand on that one a little bit.
And it's a special edition of Plant Talk this morning with Fred Howard, the Ohio nurseryman. I'm Mark Noose alongside, and of course we have our special guest today, Dave Peabody from Peabody Landscape, who's talking about how to get your yard ready and some of the things you should do and some of the people you should talk to if you're thinking about redoing your lawn or even just sprucing it up a bit. And Fred, you had a question about the hawthorn.
Well, yes, I want to go back to the Winter King hawthorn. As our listeners would be aware, I have used that for a plant, an item in color. When it's in bloom, I have talked about it in fruit all winter long, and then I've talked about it, the hungry cedar waxwings coming back through. We'll pick it clean in a certain period of time in the spring. And where we have large, almost estate-sized properties in some cases, and then we have something way the heck less than that on these eighth and quarter acre lots. But just to exemplify one tree, I'm going to start off with a thought, Dave, and see if you agree with me. It has good form. That is a short or tall trunk, if you wish. It has relatively smaller thorns and somewhat fewer of them. It grows a bit looking like a flowering crab in terms of being almost as broad as tall. It has a beautiful gray bark on the smooth side, at least while young. It then has good flower, good fruit, good form, good texture. And what else can we do for what I call a 5-season plant?
That one pretty much takes the cake.
That's right.
It's actually one of my favorite ornamental flowering trees. One of the bad names it gets is the hawthorn, thorn
right.
being at the end of haw. Right. But most people are concerned about that, and I've always told them, don't worry. You never yet, in the 27 years I've been in business, have had anybody say that they've had any child or anybody that was hurt by a hawthorn.
Well,
Black locust is a little different.
That's right. Black locust. Well, I understand the Indians used to use those thorns to sew tough leather with.
Yeah,
but in
needles.
any event,
That's correct.
I have to go back to just one time, and it was one of these inadvertent things. The guy I'm speaking of happened to be 6'7". He had on a cap. He was riding up on his riding mower, and even though he had limbed up this hawthorn, it happened to be a Winter King, which can be done in a limited time. You get it up to where you can walk under it and all these good things. But he didn't lean quite right, and he had one little puncture wound in his head. But in my case, it's well over 27 years, Dave, and that's the only incident that I can think of where people have been aware of what the plant is. They've pruned it properly to get it above the heads of the children who might inadvertently stumble into it, and then the adults or at least older teens won't try to climb it but one time.
And this is a special edition of Plant Talk. Alongside Fred Howard, the Ohio nurseryman, we have Dave Peabody from Peabody Landscape, and we're talking about all of your landscaping needs and how to plan a more beautiful home. Of course, we're going to talk about a lot of more topics with Dave coming up, including things like fall being a time for planting. But stick with us this morning on a special edition of Plant Talk.
This summer at Franklin Park Conservatory and Botanical Gardens, the gardens are in full color. Walk amidst tropical and native butterflies in flight in the indoor Pacific Island Water Garden. View the conservatory's bonsai collection and experience the exhibition Origami in the Garden. Find details at fpconservatory.org.
And welcome back to the program. Mark Noose here alongside Fred Howard, the Ohio nurseryman, on Plant Talk. And Dave Peabody is with us today from Peabody Landscape. We're talking a lot about landscaping today. And Dave, I guess just coming at this from a homeowner's perspective, how do you choose somebody to come out and work on your landscape? Is it just, do you grab the phone book? Do you look for, sometimes you'll look for a professional logo or something, or a professional some sort of a organization they belong to, or how do you pick somebody?
It's interesting you ask that question. We've been tracking in the last couple of years very closely the leads that we get and where people find out about us. And one of the things that we find is that they see our trucks working in their neighborhood. We're a big advocate of utilizing our trailers as moving billboards. So they see that, and I don't think there's a week that goes by where somebody doesn't mention, I see your trucks all over town. They don't see the trucks, they actually see the trailers because that's what's so big. But as far as the leads, we get people who call us up for obviously various things, from smaller projects to larger projects. And I think one of the most important factors to remember when somebody calls a landscape contractor for advice and so forth is that they're highly educated professionals, and it needs to be respected that their time is valuable and worthwhile, especially some of the responses. And it's okay, I think, to get a general interview of what people do and how they approach the landscape with clients over the phone, but once they get on site and they're walking around, it's anticipated that there's going to be some type of a professional fee charged by the landscape contractor to the owner, because it is a highly educational field that needs respect.
Dave, I can't help but, let's just say, reiterate that and then speak to your traveling billboards and others somewhat doing the same. Some put up a sign, this work is being done by, etc. All of that is personal promotion, all of which is beneficial, and all of it then hopefully portrays some professionalism. And we come down then to opening up the Central Ohio phone book. There are beaucoup numbers of landscapers. This is okay, period. Then when picking one out, I also advocate not only the billboard that travels, but that people look at landscape sites that are well groomed, well drawn up. That is, just say the plan, which they may never see, but it's a site that works visually. And you talk to the owners, maybe it's a distant neighbor or relative even, where they say, well, maintenance isn't that bad because. So those are the things that, along with your traveling billboard, then a client can ask and or look at your work through an inquiry from you, what have you done? Or just as they've seen, let's just say 10 jobs that are of a good presence to them when they drive up the street, and they happen to ask 8 of the 10 people who did their work, and you show up as having done 4 of them, that's pretty good advertisement that you can do what the client needs done.
Well, the referral is by far the best advertising any company could ever have. And I think there again, just visually seeing, vehicles working in front of somebody's house illustrates that.
Yeah. Now, I don't know that we need to get into specific fees, Dave, but I can't agree anymore, and I've talked about it for over 50 years now, about professionalism, and that's based on doing a good job. And to do a good job takes an educated person, both in school and time, in grade and so on. I don't even know how to phrase this. I think maybe you said it best, just that there should be a fee. And I don't think that's a hidden factor. I think on a telephone inquiry, can you come out and take a look at my place, that can be discussed, that it's X dollars per hour, that we're going to, want to set up an interview, and you should be thinking about these things so we can expedite the interview. We're going to take a walk around your property and start, recommending what can be done in general. Then we do a plan on the drawing board or otherwise that starts to pin things down. This is all chargeable. And these charges start before a shovel is ever picked up out of the trailer or out of the garage, either way. I think people need to know that. And then they have to decide what is a reasonable fee. But I'm one to advocate that you pretty much get what you pay for. Now, I don't mean skyrocket type costs, but that the professional is covering their time so they don't have to overbill the guy they do the work for, so that they can cover this. Do you wish to share an hourly fee or just leave it that it should be a professional charge?
No, it's something that we can discuss. The most important element when deciding on a professional is identifying who you really want to work with. I would recommend them talking to 2, 3, no more than 4, because I think at that time they're wasting their own time and they're going to confuse themselves. But similar to that of an interior designer, they get hired basically based on again, referral.
That's right.
So I think it's more of a referral based information as far as how people are hired and so forth. But we do charge a fee. We have a consultation fee, and then we'll credit 50% of that to the design.
Okay.
And then we have an hourly fee of $75 an hour, and that includes meetings with the client, the time it takes to draw up the plan, as well as whatever minor revisions and changes that get made. And quite honestly, I would say that we spend certainly more time on doing the design itself than what they actually get charged, because we actually have a flat fee up front.
Well, Dave, I've done that so many times, and it's almost ridiculous to talk about it, thinking of yourself as a businessman, but I have probably never stayed within the confines of a statement, it'll cost X to design this for you. I'm always about 2X or 3X into my pocket. And that's okay, because I get excited about their product, and, well,